all the books with adaptation deals. These are not even all of them. I'm just doing this for effect. Say hi to Misha. So good. I used hazelnut milk this time though, so then the green doesn't come out as green, which kind of messes with me a little bit. Okay, now we can chat. I'm gonna start with Deep Cuts. Cue the movie poster. I read Deep Cuts because it's a literary fiction novel and it also has a sub-genre of romance, and that's the book I wrote, so I'm always trying to read the marketplace comps. Quick synopsis. About two students named Percy and Joe. Through the years, they meet at UC Berkeley and they have this kind of toxic relationship where they inspire each other to produce music, but that toxicity kind of translates into their personal relationship as well, and of course they fall in love. But the beautiful relationship they have professionally and creatively can never transfer over to their romantic one. Long story short, they get in each other's way over and over and over and over and over again. Okay, critique time. The strength of this book is the intellectual component. The author Holly Brickley gets really detailed into the architecture of musical composition, which is a really neat thing to dive into in a book. That's definitely its unique X factor. But the book is misleading. Like, in the beginning, it's all about the relationship between Percy and Joe and how they meet and what that creative process between them starts to look like. And you think the rest of the book is just going to be this really deep psychological interiority between these two very intellectual and smart people who are falling for each other. But no, most of the book then transfers over to just Percy's interiority and just her life through New York City. And Joe kind of disappears until more of the end. So that I did not like. It kind of set up a weird expectation. What I thought it was going to be and why I picked up the book ended up not being what most of the book was, which I think is why I felt a little dissatisfied. Okay, adaptation time. So A24 is adapting Deep Cuts. They cast Kaylee Spaney, I don't know, as Percy and Drew Starkey as Joe. I really think that's a good cast because when I saw these two actors for the first time, when I looked them up, I was like, oh, that's exactly who I thought Percy and Joe would look like in real life. And they both have a bit of that look where you can tell some depth is there. Like, I think when you're casting intellectual characters, you always want your actors to have that kind of depth in their eyes and carry a sort of gravitas that you know the character would carry themselves. It's going to be directed by Sean Durkin, who directed The Iron Claw and so is already part of that A24 family. Okay, here's what I'm concerned about. So I think it was cast well. I think the director is interesting. But A24 makes things kind of dark and kind of gritty. And I know Deep Cuts kind of has that flavor, like the tone is very dry, it's very Sally Rooney-esque, and it's very like brooding, creative energy, whatever. But I'm worried it'll be a little too gritty. Also, as someone who went to UC Berkeley for undergrad, I did not have the experience of UC Berkeley being kind of like this grimy place, and I just feel like that's how A24 is going to depict the city and the university. Maybe it was like that more in the 90s, which I think is when this book takes place. But I don't know if I'll appreciate the aesthetic tone that A24 does with this. We'll see, right? I mean, the good thing about A24 being the one to adapt this is that it's very much it's about the indie rock scene. The book itself feels indie, and A24 obviously does indie feature films really well. So for that component, I think it's a really good production company set to adapt this. Okay, Deep Cuts. Let's move on. Put it back in the shelf. The Bodyguard. Okay, The Bodyguard by Katherine Center. Cue the poster. So, synopsis time. The concept is so unique and it is the strength. Hannah Brooks is a kind of Secret Service type agent who gets hired to protect an actor named Jack Stapleton. Okay, the woman is the bodyguard. Hype this up. Jack has to go back to his family ranch and he can't let the family know that he has a bodyguard because he doesn't want them to know he has a stalker, so she has to pose as his girlfriend. I know, trope alert. But in this scenario, I don't think it's necessarily a red flag actually, because the trope perpetration, it gets overshadowed by the good concept, and it also gets into a little bit of a genre blending, which also overshadows the potential problematic nature of perpetrating such a trope. By the end, I'm gonna try to do this without any spoilers, by the end, you know, this reads like a rom-com, and then it kind of turns into a thriller, and she has to protect him, which is also gets back to that first reason of why this book is good, because of the gender-defying plot. Okay, critique time. I know we kind of already started doing that, but you know, I can't help myself. The dialogue is a little base. It's a really easy read because the pacing is amazing. It moves really, really quickly. And so if you want like a fun, fast read, this is your book. But I myself always looking for a little bit more of that intellectual banter and that deeper conversation. Sometimes it feels like their romance and bond building falls back on or relies too much on the circumstance rather than actually using conversation to deepen the connection. They kind of just assume sometimes, I feel like, oh, because of these two main characters, they're gonna fall for each other. When I would have wanted a little more interiority. I like when there are more Nora Ephron type conversations. I mean, when there's something like in When Harry Met Sally or Good Will Hunting, these are kind of random examples, but they're examples of films that have a lot of deeper dialogue that does character development, but also does bond development. And I think when you can do the two at the same time, that's when there's some real beautiful symphony in just the arc of the story. So again, if you want great pacing, great concept, easy read, this is your book. If you want a little more depth and a little more nuance, I would maybe skip it. Okay. Oh wait, I forgot. Adaptation. Okay, I love the cast for this so much for so many reasons. Okay, so Hannah Brooks, the Secret Service agent, is going to be cast as Leighton Meester. Blair, Gossip Girl, hello. You know, she actually is an amazing comedy actress, and she didn't really get to show that range in much of her early roles. And so I'm so excited that she's getting an opportunity to show that side of her acting wheelhouse. And then Jack Stapleton is getting cast as Dean from Gilmore Girls. I feel like, okay, not only are they cast well individually, but cast together is really, really smart because they're particularly drawing on this one demographic, this one generation of TV watchers, and also for actors who haven't had the opportunity to really shine in their own lead role and in the feature space. So this is a really, really smart cast. This is gonna be like the millennials rom-com movie. I'm Gen Z, but like, I'm just calling it now. All right, next. That was such a long rant. I need another sip. Oh, she's asleep. Ooh, this one. You ready for this? The Love Hypothesis. All right. Cue movie poster. All right, The Love Hypothesis. Quick synopsis. This takes place in Stanford STEM, which is epic. It is between a PhD student named Olive and a professor named Dr. Adam Carlson. Yes, 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 I know what you're thinking. It's like the trope of the power dynamic and the man is in the position of power and it's the hot professor, the hot shot professor, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I kind of felt that way too, but I'm gonna take you through what compensates for that and what doesn't. The other trope perpetrated in this book, just to cover our ground right now, is not just the power dynamic and the age gap, but it is they have to pretend that they're dating for this kind of myriad of honestly kind of stupid reasons, but you like really want to see them do it, so you kind of don't care. And you have to, you know, watch her, oh, I need to put sunscreen on you at this hot volleyball game in front of the entire department, so we don't like break the facade of us dating. Trope. But what really compensates for all of that kind of ridiculousness is the context in which the story is taking place. Like, I myself went really deep on the academic track for a long hot minute. I thought I was going to be a professor. You know, I was at Oxford for my master's. I got into the PhD program. I thought I would keep going down that track. So to have a rom-com set in that academic space that I'm so familiar with was really, really refreshing, and it was really fun. I mean, it automatically elevates the story in a certain way that others forget to use their setting for. But critique time. So I loved this. Pacing is great. Lags a little sometimes in the middle, but mostly great. The dialogue between the two characters, and I know I've said this in another book before, but okay, it's important. Dialogue between the two is not as deep as the setting is. So the context is more intelligent than the conversation. Okay, some of this might be like STEM people, and I know this is coming from a social scientist, so, you know, control for that here, control for that bias. But I think STEM people don't often have those kind of like nitty-gritty conversations. Just in the STEM people I've known in my life, they're really, really smart in different ways, and yeah, just different contexts. And so some of that might just be the type of characters. But I still think there could have been, again, a little more interiority between the two. Like they could have talked a little more about why Dr. Carlson is kind of closed off, and that, you know, stereotype of being a little emotionally unavailable, but then maybe like available just for her. And she probably could have gone into a little more of her insecurity, because they kind of, her insecurity is kind of just assigned as a personality trait, and it's not really dove into like where that came from, why that is. I don't think you necessarily always need to show backstory, but I think you could put in more plot beats that explore how deep the insecurity goes. Well, I guess they do that though. I would be curious if you read this book to see, like, to hear from you what could be done to deepen the connection between these two. So yeah, despite the stereotypes of the power dynamic, the have to fake a romance, the professor and student, like I loved it. Oh, I loved reading it, and I felt like giddy toward the end. We gotta remember when critiquing things that we critique things that are worth improvement. Like I always, whenever I talk about like religion or politics or anything, some people will be like, why are you hating on it so much? And it's not hate, it's like I care to think about how to improve it because it's a worthwhile presence in our lives. Rant over. Next book. 1 second. Let's do Beach Read. Cue the poster here. I really liked this one. Emily Henry. We all know Emily Henry. Goddess, queen of the rom-com. I have not read every book by her yet, but I've read a lot, and this has been my favorite. So this is her debut one. It was written during COVID, and it is a rom-com, synopsis time, a rom-com between two writers, which is so fun as a writer to read. Like, this is the rom-com writers should read. So the guy writer is Augustus, and he writes literary fiction, and the woman writer is January, and she writes romance. And through a series of plot beats and such, they end up having to write each other's genres, which is such a great concept. The guy has to write a romance novel, and January has to write a literary fiction. And okay, this is the best part of the book. This is the meta part that is just often not there, so this is great. The kind of books that they're writing show exactly what kind of arc and character development they each need to go through. Like January is writing a book that's literary fiction, and it's a story about what just happened in her family that she has to work through and figure out how to feel about. It's kind of like a betrayal and stuff. I won't ruin it for you. And Augustus has to work through some trauma with his mom. And also, I appreciate that it's not like daddy issues, because even though it's prevalent, it's a really good thing to explore, and I'll admit my book even does a little bit of that myself. I just appreciate that it was about the mom instead, because usually problematic guys or complicated guys in stories, they have daddy issues. It's not the woman, it's the men. And there's also this whole subplot about a death cult, which I was listening to Emily Henry talk about, and she was saying like when she wasn't sure if the romance genre marketplace even had a spot for a rom-com that dealt with subject matter like that. And I'm so glad that it broke through, because the more nuance and diversity we can get in setting and plot placement within genres, I think the better the genres are, especially with the romance genres, because romance is an amazing, beautiful genre. It deals with the most ubiquitous thing that we all deal with, which is love and the trials of it. But in so being so ubiquitous, it's the most susceptible to tropes. And so the more diversity we can welcome into the genre, I think the more it all just keeps getting even better than already is. Okay, adaptation time. Favorite part. So January is cast as Phoebe Devener, which is so fun. I would have never expected that kind of casting, actually. But she was the Bridgerton star of season 1, which was, let's face it, after season 2, the best one. I can't find anywhere who's cast as Augustus. So if you have knowledge on this, please tell me. Okay, now this is the most interesting part for me about the adaptation. It's being directed by Yulin Quang. Okay, so Quang has been adapting scripts already for the Emily Henry cinematic universe. She co-wrote the script for People We Meet on Vacation. the movie that just came out on Netflix. Okay, so why is this interesting? I feel that the more pure a storytelling funnel is, the better the adaptation is from book to screen. This kind of gets into my Holy Trinity concept, which is another video if you want to go check that out. But I myself am a director, I'm a writer, I'm a screenwriter. I want to do all three. And so I want to preserve that pipeline from page to screen, because the fewer minds that are on it, the less that gets lost in interpretation. And let's face it, that's like the biggest fear in adapting our favorite books. So Emily Henry having Yulin Kuang adapt one script and now write more and direct more is creating this kind of cohesion across her cinematic landscape, which I think is really, really neat, because right now only director writers have that, you know, like Tarantino, for example, and Kubrick, and even Greta Gerwig is starting to like create this kind of branded tone and aesthetic across her work, but we haven't seen it as much for authors, because authors have historically had less agency in the adaptation process, which is a problem, people. That's a problem. We need to keep the authors fully immersed in that entire pipeline. The story starts and ends with them, especially the story's integrity. Oh, Misha got bored of being on screen. Do you just hear her? I lost track of what I was saying. Yes, so authors having a more cohesive cinematic world, I think is gonna create a whole new marketplace for book adaptations. We're already seeing Hollywood turn to books more and more. I mean, A24 seems like every adaptation deal they pick up nowadays, like all their deals are coming from books, because there's originality crisis in Hollywood right now. Hollywood has not been investing in original concepts, and they're starting to notice that the saturation of repeated stories of, like, you know, these remakes from Disney, the same stories we all know, and like the remakes of old movies we already know. Like, I think they're redoing 13 Going on 30 and American Psycho, and although I think those will be good, you get my point. So they're turning to books for the originality. And now we as readers have an opportunity also to hold our producers and our cinematic storytellers accountable for the book's original story integrity. We need to preserve that moral spine of the story and not let people come in and not realize what the book readers want and need. We need to protect the story's pipeline from page to screen. That's like the thesis for my entire career. So this is why I've been following the Emily Henry development so closely, because every single one of her books has a development deal right now. And the other interesting thing about this, I know, sorry, I'm just like ranting about this, but the other interesting thing about this is that every adaptation she's doing, it's not by the same streaming platform, and it's not the same format as well. There are feature films, there are TV shows, there are limited series, and it's all being developed by different people. So I think it's particularly important to have, like, you know, people like Yulin Kuang, you know, on several of those different projects, so that even though it's getting adapted by different people and getting streamed by different places, different production companies, that you do preserve a little bit of the cohesion, because Emily Henry, you know, has a style, and that should be a branded style when her stories go off to the screen. Graduate to their postgraduate degree, because I don't want to say sending the books off to college, because like, this is college. It is really hard to get a book published. I am in this grind right now. Literary agents, where are you? Okay, next book. Verity by Colleen Hoover. Okay, movie poster. See it, learn it, know it, love it. I love this one. I am such a scaredy cat. Like, I can't watch anything thriller, anything horror, anything scary. And this is a thriller written by a romance novel. I mean, Colleen Hoover is the one who did It Ends With Us. You know, the problematic movie, that should be a whole other video. But this is amazing. Synopsis time. It is about a writer who gets incapacitated, and then their publisher needs to bring in another writer to finish the book series for her, and then this writer goes to her home and then starts uncovering all these deep secrets from this like secret autobiography she found of the writer she's covering the book series for, and then she's kind of falling in love with the husband at the same time. Oh my God, the drama. And it's a thriller that's palatable to romance readers. Scary cat. I don't even want to say anything else about this book, because I don't want to ruin anything for you. Like, I want you to read this, and I want you to read it as if you're reading it for the first time, which I know will be the first time, but I don't want to bias your head with my stuff on it yet, because I feel like if I say anything about this, I'm just gonna like ruin it. So let's talk about the adaptation instead. Okay, A24 is adapting this. Again, just like deep cuts, who we started the video with. I am scared. I am scared that A24 is gonna make this too scary and too gritty. I really hope that the screenwriter for this adaptation is one from the world of rom-coms or romance, because I think if you take someone who has written for thrillers and horror, you're gonna miss out on the charm of this book, which is that it is palatable to a wider audience beyond thriller and horror. So if A24 adapts this and makes it too scary and too dark, they're gonna miss the point of this. This is a genre blending piece of art here. They cast Anne Hathaway and Dakota Johnson for this. The director is Michael Showalter, which is a good sign because he directed The Idea of You, which is that Prime adaptation with Anne Hathaway. So, you know, they're keeping that duo together. This makes me feel comforted that the adaptation is going to be done right. Whew. Okay, I'm gonna put this away for now, but like, read this. I read it in one weekend. I'm losing steam. I'm talking so quickly. I need matcha. Oh, these videos are really long to film. All right. I saved my favorite for last, actually, from this bundle of books we're doing for the video. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. The glam is so good. All right, this is by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm gonna put the poster up here. This is the first book of hers I've read, and now I really want to read more, but again, I'm like doing this big breadth research. I'm trying to push myself to read tons of different authors and genres, and I want to read more of her though. I'll get to it. Okay, synopsis time. This is about a Hollywood icon from the 50s named Evelyn Hugo and her just relentlessly, unabashedly ambitious path to success. And we love that. We love an extra ambitious woman who will do whatever the F it takes to get to the top. Is that a little intense? Good. I also love that this protagonist makes a lot of quote unquote mistakes. Like, that's important, particularly for female protagonists in stories. I feel like we all have a tendency to write women as kind of like this Madonnas of virtue, and we think that we need to in order for her to be likable, which is not the case. The other cool thing about this story is that, you know, it says the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and you think, oh, it's going to be about the seven husbands, and it is only about the seven husbands in terms of it being a structural layout for the timeline of the story. It's not about the husbands at all. It's about the woman she was in love with the entire time. I love this. There's also a really neat sub-story just about bisexuality that I never knew about. Like, she goes into how when you're bisexual, you kind of defy categories, but people try to categorize you. We all try to categorize people. We can't live with ambiguity as human beings. We try really hard not to, but I find the best, most intelligent people can live with ambiguity. They can find comfort in discomfort, and this book really pushes you to do so. She would say that the men she dated kind of made her out to be just heterosexual, and that the woman she loved would cast her as just gay. But she lives in between the two. She exists in the spaces in between, which is just a beautiful place to play with in storytelling. It's a beautiful place to put your character in. I love finding the gray zones and the gray areas of life. Like, that is where the meat is. So if you combine the glam, the pacing, the relentless, ambitious woman, playing the gray zones, all great. Oh no, someone's coming. Misha. Okay, I'm back. Misha, you wanna see Misha? Hello, Misha. Broke the fourth wall, you saw the camera move. Okay, all in all, those are some of the books that are getting adaptation deals that I think you should read. This is part one. I'm gonna keep reading more batches. I'm already in the next batch right now, but let me know what you think. Let me know what you think the adaptations will be like, which ones we should fear, which ones should be excited for. And also, if you have suggestions, please drop the suggestions in the comments. I have like a really long list I'm working through, and I love hearing from you. Cheers. Wait. Cheers.